Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Finance Committee meeting for June 23rd, 2021. On tonight's agenda, we are going to review and vote on transfers, and we don't have any minutes to review, so that's about it. So let's look at our transfers first. The first one is from the Town Clerk Elections Department. And coming from the line precinct officers, amount requested is $2,000, and that is going to supplies. And the precinct officer line has a balance of $4,986.91. Reason for the $2,000 transfer: additional supplies needed for electronic voting for town meeting. Can you tell us about this?
Sure.
Mr. Kessler?
So I told the town clerk that I would explain this transfer to the Finance Committee members so she didn't have to come out for one item. The original electronic voting system we bought with CARES money, federal money, as a result of COVID-19, because it forced us to hold those meetings in various rooms because of social distancing limitations. Anyway, there were some additional supplies that were needed post-town meeting, so we wouldn't have to have that. We had a support individual there up on stage, and that's going to cost $2,000 each time he showed up to render that support. These supplies, the bulk of this is for a receiver that is permanently installed in the auditorium room that would allow people to vote. And it wouldn't be portable, it'd be a permanent structure. There's some cabling, and there's also a monitor to support the display behind the town clerk. There's a display on the table, but there's a display on the big screen. So there's a display, monitor, and receiver and cables.
Thank you.
And it no longer we don't believe it qualifies for COVID anymore, because once the state lifted its restrictions on the 29th, then we can resume back to normal.
Meetings as before. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sir, question?
Just, was that system successful, and will that be continuing on through normal town meetings going forward?
Yes, that system has been very successful. I'm sure you witnessed the actual vote. You can just see how people are voting in live time. Once the time is expired, it's displayed on the screen, and it also maintains a history for town meeting members. Were they present? Did they vote? How did they vote?
Good.
So we're able to extract historical reports based upon their action at town meeting.
Good. Any other questions? Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right. The next transfer, thank you, is from the library. And there's several here. The first transfer is from, I see our librarian here. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Jean.
Hey, Jean. The first transfer is coming from the Assistant Children's Librarian account, which has a balance of $4,734.24. The amount requested is $374 going to the director line, and this is to cover estimated line deficit through 6/30/2021. Okay. Do I hear any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, the next transfer is also coming from the Assistant Children's Librarian line, which now has a balance of $4,360.24. Matt requested $485 going to the Assistant Tech Librarian line to cover estimated line item deficit through 6/30/2021. Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the third transfer is coming from also the Assistant Children's Librarian line, and that balance is now $3,875.24, and that's going to the Assistant Administration Librarian, $969 amount requested. So can you just tell us about this, please, Jean, the transfer? Thank you.
Mostly these are COLA deficits, and I believe it's probably my error at one point. These numbers are very close, and I made an entry error with these. The last one for building and grounds was because we had to have an emergency service call for our alarm service, and that came in a little bit higher than they originally thought. We had a number of issues to take care of.
Okay, what is that line that's going to a number 3? Assistant Administration Librarian?
That's a position that's currently unfilled.
Oh, okay. Okay. If it's unfilled, why are we transferring the money to it?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at the other one. There
Oh.
are 3 administrative assistant positions. One is
Yeah.
administrative assistant for patron and circulation services, one is for children's services, and one is for technology. So the one that we're drawing from is the administrative assistant for children's services.
Yeah, I recall that was open. Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Motion to approve? Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. And the last transfer is also coming from the Assistant Children's Librarian line, which has now a balance of $2,906.24. Amount requested $73.36, going to the Building and Grounds line to cover line item deficit through 6/30/2021.
Motion to approve? Second.
All in favor?
Question.
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
Question, sir? Yes.
I just wanted to clarify, it's probably the balance, the present balance in each one of these, given the same account changes, is it taking into consideration that the prior one's being approved?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. All set. Thank you, Jean. Thank you. Okay, our next transfer is from the DDIS Building Department. The requested amount is coming from the clerk's salary. The present balance in that account is $19,000. Am I looking at the right
Oh,
one?
you got the right one, but there's 2 that are actually, one that came in late today. It's the same account. It looks like they add to that.
So I should do excuse me.
together.
Oh, so there are 2 separate ones? Okay.
2 separate ones.
All right, yeah, okay. So I see a motion here. We have 2 transfers coming from for the DDIS Building Department. Both of these transfers are coming from the clerk's salary account. Do I hear a motion that we take these transfers together?
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so we have 2 transfers here. They're both coming from the clerk's salary account, which has a balance of $19,945.24. One transfer is for $600. The second transfer is for $10,000, both going to the DDIS inspectional vehicle. The reason for both the transfers is that the existing vehicle was put out of service, and we need a replacement vehicle. Okay. Hi, Darlene. Do you want to tell us about this? Nice
Sure.
to see you.
Good evening. Same here. Hello, everybody. We have an excess in the clerk's line item under building because we had a vacancy for a long time, for about half the year. We were fortunate that we were closed, the office itself was closed most of the time during COVID. So we were able to hire for that position earlier this year, and the clerk is working out wonderful. But because of that excess there, kind of a couple of things happened. The Crown Victoria that we were using in the department, that we had been able to get from the police department, were able to loan that to us, it literally, we drove it into the ground. So earlier this year, in March, it wasn't going to pass inspection because of severe rot on it, and we had some issues with the tires and the brakes. So out of safety reasons, they put it out of commission. That left a hole for us because we have several people that are out on the road every day. So in kind of reviewing what our options were, we do have in the CIP, we had an inspectional vehicle that is scheduled for the CIP for FY23 and FY24. So we had money there. So trying to figure out a solution, working with Ed and his team. We wanted to see if we were able to purchase a vehicle, inspectional vehicle, to get us back on the road for our inspectors, and use some of the excess that we had already in the budget. So it's not increasing the budget, just trying to utilize funds for a vehicle. If we make a payment with this excess funds, if you do consider approving this, then we can use the already CIP funds to pay the balance of it. So the vehicle that we have looked at, we did go out and looked at a municipal group. The cost of the vehicle is $32,705. It is a Ford Explorer, four-wheel drive. We've noticed that the vehicles that we've had in the department, we've actually gotten stuck before if we don't have a vehicle that can actually get us out of snow and some of the weather that gets thrown at us. So we're trying to be smart about the vehicles that we buy, and you know, I certainly, I'm happy to answer any questions about it. The financing company did give us a quote just yesterday of what the additional cost would be. So what I did is I used the CIP money that we have in the budget, and also looking at the excess from that clerk's position that was vacant for half the year, and I put together what I'm hoping sounds reasonable to you. Can answer any questions that you may have.
Questions?
I have a couple. Hi. Can you tell me if there's any value to what we have, that whether we scrap it or we do anything, is there any provision to maybe get some money back for the vehicle that is, you know, no longer out of service, whether it's, is there any ability to gain any profit from that other than just junk it?
I think the only value we may get out of that is scrap.
Right.
And there is a value to that, and typically what we do is we will take it to the yard, and whatever money we get gets turned back over to the general fund as
So that makes
revenue.
this seem a little lighter. It's
Yeah.
not such a, and then with the CIP being in 23, 24, just to clarify, are you saying that you're going to start amortization payments now, and that by the time you get to 23, it'll just fall into that CIP area?
So this payment here, if approved tonight, they will place the order. We wouldn't take delivery until FY22 after July 1. I will carry over some of money to meet payment number 1 obligation since the order is placed now. We recognize that down payment. So we would go from a payment, first payment would be in FY22 funded through this transfer, then we fall into the CIP, payment 2 in 23, payment 3 in 24.
And not knowing the CIP at the moment for 23, do you feel confident that there's no reason why this would get bumped out of there, or that you don't see it as a problem in 23 to start something we can't keep up with? So in other words, you're relying on money in the future that's in the CIP, but the CIP falls second to the operational budget.
Right.
So I just want to...
I mean, like any obligation we have for our vehicles, it's typically done. Some are purchased outright, but there are others that are done through a lease.
Right.
It relies on future payments. That's why we have a 5-year plan that goes to town meeting and gets approved.
Right. So the 23 is pretty much a done deal.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Questions?
Just overall town fleet questions. I understand you capitalized previously on repurposing a police vehicle, and I know we've had discussions in the past that four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive is a necessity based on some of the work sites you're going to and whatnot. Have we looked to see, I mean, I know there's been some criticisms not of your department, but the police department for the number of vehicles they're carrying. Have we looked at sort of another stopgap measure to get us to the 23 so we don't have to go into this? And is the Explorer the only vehicle you've sort of spec'd out to meet your needs?
I can't speak for the police department, but I can certainly tell you the police department has been very generous with vehicles for our department. If they are able to allow us to use a vehicle that they are not in immediate need of, we have done that. We have done that with a couple of times. So over the years, we've been able to get by with existing fleet vehicles within the town. As
And
far
I
as
mentioned police, I'm just talking overall town, whether it's DPW or fire or school department or some other, overall town fleet. I just mentioned police because I think they may have the most fleet vehicles, maybe.
Yeah, we have in the past used a Band-Aid approach that would allow us to get to 23 without incurring an additional obligation. The way I see this is we're just accelerating this by 1 year. We do have the funds available. We do an outreach to various departments to see if there's a vehicle that they're willing to release to us. Although because we're a green community, there's only certain vehicles that we can transfer over to other departments without violating the terms and conditions under that agreement. If we do violate those terms and agreement, then any green community dollars we receive, and we received over $1 million in the past 4 years, would dry up and we no longer qualify. So we don't want to put that in jeopardy. We don't want to lose an opportunity to score additional dollars through the Green Communities Grant.
Questions? I have, how many vehicles are in the DDIS department?
currently, so we have 3 vehicles. We have a Sonic, a Trax, and a animal control vehicle.
And then this will be the 4th one?
This would be the 4th one. This is basically replacing the Crown Victoria that we were using for many years. And like I said, the Crown Victoria died several months ago.
It sounds, you mentioned that the frame rotted, so there's not much you can do.
Yeah.
All right.
And I can also offer, several years ago, everybody in the department was using their own vehicles. And we had like, I guess, higher expense on like mileage, of a lot of mileage coming in. We kind of sat down and, tried to come up with a plan so that, number one, we're trying to save money on the regular operating budget by not having so much mileage from everybody. And then the other part of this is it does become problematic, as you can imagine, in our department. We do go to a lot of inspections that people may not be happy with us. And if somebody's in their own vehicle, it makes you feel, I guess, a little bit more concerned because now you're in your own personal vehicle. So I hope you can imagine that having somebody in a town vehicle also keeps that level of professionalism.
Well, it's official. It's official that you're hopefully really dealing with a real employee instead of some fraudulent circumstance because someone showed up in an unmarked vehicle.
And just to let you know, we're currently pursuing through a grant an electric car. We are installing electric charging stations throughout town through a grant. We do have a request into the state to purchase a vehicle. So that may offer another opportunity to help in the inspectional services area. Because that ACO vehicle is basically dedicated for, it's not a shared vehicle, it's strictly used for ACO. So that only really gives them 2 vehicles to use. And the number of inspectors that go out in the field, I don't have to tell, I mean, Darlene can tell you on a day-to-day basis, there are times when they ask to use the assessor's vehicle because they have no transportation to get in the field.
Okay. Great, all set? Do I hear a motion to, do I hear a motion to recommend? Did we already do that?
Motion to approve?
Motion approved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, the next transfer from the DDIS Animal Control Department is coming from the Conference and Travel line, which has a balance of $500. The amount requested is $300 going to kennel maintenance, and this is for supplies needed for the kennel. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
Motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Thanks, Darlene.
All right, and that's it, right? Yours?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a
Darlene. Nice to
great
see you.
evening.
All right, the next transfers are from the DPW Highway Department. Okay, first is from DPW Engineering.
Sure, welcome on your duty.
Yes, hello, welcome, Joanna, our new DPW Director.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Okay, let's see, the first transfer is coming from wages, which has a present balance of $19,257.62. The amount requested is $15,683.87 going to the DPW Director line. This is money paid to W. Coyle for his vacation time upon his departure.
Who's this W. Coyle person?
Yeah.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The next transfer is coming from the reserve account, the salary reserve account. It's a request from the DPW Highway Department. Amount requested is $7,500 going to the overtime account, and the present balance in the account is $0. Reason for the shortage in said account: the overtime account is used for repairing potholes, picking up deceased animals, downed trees and limbs, and other miscellaneous items. All right, so do you want to, I noticed, I think there was another, no, okay, do you want to tell us about this transfer, Joanna?
So this is to fill in for, the account is basically zeroed out at this point. So to just get us over the next few weeks, the DPW gets called, numerous times for various reasons listed on the transfer request.
So is this is to cover a deficit?
I believe
Yes, so if I may. Let me just take a quick look at the account. So the overtime account currently is $6,600 in the hole. Okay, so for the items that were listed in the transfer, generated an overage in that account. So in discussing with Joanna, we thought $7,500 would get us through June 30th. So it does provide for an additional amount the next 2 weeks, if needed.
Any questions? Do I hear motion to approve?
Motion to approve? Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. The next transfer is for the DPW Highway Department, coming from the reserve account. The amount requested is $4,800 going to, professional services, and this account has a balance of $0. And reason for the shortage, this will finalize the monitoring of the wells at the DPW building. Wow. Finalizing, huh?
Right, so I can't tell you how much money we
Yes.
spent down at the highway since the contamination was uncovered. It's been years, but anyway, this is the final leg. Kleinfelder has provided a report that basically closes this out. There are reporting requirements to DEP as a result of this closure. They have to cap the wells. There was a warrant article that went before town meeting with 5,000. The scope of services that was presented, and we just received, it was 9,800. So this is the bridge in addition to the 5 that will allow us to close that out.
How long has that been going on, that monitoring? Or when did the incident occur?
I would say it's got to be 20 years, and the original cleanup was in excess of $500,000. And there's been monitoring all along. There was a migration that actually went across the street over to the Hertz property. We had to put monitoring wells over there. They take groundwater samples through the monitoring wells on a periodic basis. It's tested until it hits levels that are safe. We're at that point now, and these wells have to be closed out.
Were those from, we had fuel tanks, we used to have our own fuel
Yes.
tanks? That's what it's from?
Questions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That's all set. The next transfer is DPW Parks. Interdepartmental transfer. The amount is coming from the Labor Parks Department, which has a present balance of $43,022.87. Amount requested is $2,500 going to the overtime account. No reason stated. Perhaps you could just give us a reason for the transfer?
You want to run with this? So because of COVID, we did a lot of extensive cleaning of the restrooms and the facilities at our parks. And we continued doing that once the restrictions were lifted and we did charge a sum of this to CARES. We did an expenditure transfer reclassifying the expenses. So that will be requested through FEMA. If FEMA kicks it, and it gets complicated, I'll get into that, but we'll kick it over to CARES. But we continue to clean, and just because I think people still feel a little uneasy about the situation, so this is going to get us through June 30th. Hopefully we can restore to a normal sequence of cleaning like we did pre-COVID that will minimize the exposure next year.
Question, why do we have such a large balance in labor parks? I know that's a group of guys you have at the DBW that I don't know how they accomplish what they accomplish based on the number of guys and then the amount of properties and acreage and.
Yeah.
So why do we have such a balance in?
So I think there was a vacant position for a period of time, and that's why there's an accumulated savings there.
No needs to additional help for those guys or summer help or anything to utilize those funds that were earmarked for labor in the Parks Department to?
Not for this year.
Not for this year, okay.
And as I understand, it was hard even getting seasonal help, even during the pandemic. And even now, I think you're seeing across the board, it's very difficult to get hired help these days. People are opting to continue to collect because they're getting a larger benefit doing that rather than being, as full-time employment. Anyway, they're getting an additional $300 a week, so.
Okay, any other questions? Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right, the next transfers have to do with the Packagug Golf Course. Okay. First one is coming from their contingency line, which has a balance of $4,760.47. Excuse me, amount requested $2,547.64 going to the superintendent line to cover the deficit. Any questions?
I have a question. I just want to clarify, on the fourth transfer down, it zeroes it out. Is there no other need for any money in this account between now and 6:30? Or is
So
that
let me
taken?
just talk about these transfers overall, because I know there'll be periodic questions. So despite the fact, good question, Patrick, that's a contingency account in an enterprise account. So we have budgetary limitations because it's an enterprise fund. So as an enterprise fund, you cannot accept transfers from the general fund reserve account because it crosses over different funds. So two things. Despite the fact that this is probably our best year at Packagug, it has created some budgetary challenges. Because there's increased activity, it's generated increased cost on the budgetary side. We don't have an opportunity, other than the fall town meeting, to make corrections to the operating budget in the enterprise fund. So I had, with consultation with DOR, I asked if they would allow us to deficit spend, knowing that the deficit would be an offset to the retained earnings. They said, no, you cannot. It's okay. So that forced us to look at in another direction. So we're managing to address any current deficits in the enterprise fund through these transfers. And there's a secondary transfer in the Parks Department that establishes an account within the Parks Department called Packagug Golf Expenses. I'm going to run them through the general fund, and then I'm going to charge them next year through an increase of indirect costs that allows the general fund to recoup those funds, okay? That's the only way we could do it. I can't deficit spend. I cannot close the golf course down.
Can you just explain that one? How do you charge?
So I charge indirect costs. You're allowed to charge indirect costs. I know Trevor was probably familiar with the terminology and how this works. Not only the direct costs are budgeted to the golf course, but there are indirect costs. There are costs in the general fund that help support the golf course. In other words, my office, we do POs. We do accounting for the golf course. The treasurer's office invests the money, they collect. We provide health insurance that's appropriated through the employee benefit side. That's a general fund expense that I'm allowed to charge back to the golf course. So we're recouping all of those costs on an annual basis. In addition to the direct costs, I'm allowed to recoup those costs above and beyond what these transfers reflect here. There are additional costs we're going to charge to the Parks Department that are 100% golf course related, that I'll back charge to them and recoup next year.
Thank you.
Okay?
That's
Patrick, through all that, did that answer your question?
Did.
Okay.
Thank you, yeah.
That's an interesting way to get around it, I guess, other than just making the contingencies account larger.
Well, I just didn't want him to get to page 8 and say, now we have to transfer money back in because we need money for next week.
See, the only allowance to deficit spend is either snow and ice or through an emergency type health or a water main break or something. Other than that, you cannot deficit spend.
Right.
So we try to get around it, but
They wouldn't let you take it from retained earnings.
no.
All right, so,
Could call an emergency town meeting and vote it out of retained earnings.
which is probably more than, the cost of that would be
Yeah.
more than this.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any other questions about that transfer?
Just given the understanding of all 4 of those, can I make a motion to combine the 4 of those into one?
If they're going to different accounts, I don't think we can. I think, is that correct?
I think the first 4, because they're all coming out of contingency, I think you can take
Oh,
those
we
as a
can?
group. Yeah.
Okay, all right then. Do I hear a motion to take these first 4 transfers as one?
Motion to take the 4 as one.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So we just talked about the first one, coming from the contingency to the superintendent line. That's $2,547.64. The second request is $1,757.48 going to the groundskeeper line. That's also to cover the deficit. The third transfer is also coming from the contingency, going to the DPW director's salary, and that amount is $77.35. The fourth transfer coming from the contingency account is going to the fuel utilities line. The amount requested is $378, and that's going to, the reason for the transfer is to cover the deficit. So do you have any additional questions on those transfers? Yep.
Are the first three, are they related to like COLA increases? Like the deficits in the salary accounts, are those related to like a cost of living increase or?
I'm sorry, Michael, I can't.
Sorry, are the first three transfers, are they related, because they're salary related, is that a cost of living increase or?
No, these are costs in excess of what was appropriated. These are seasonal. The I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yes, these were increases given to the superintendent and to the groundskeeper at the beginning of the fiscal year.
Okay, any other questions? Do I hear a motion to recommend approval of these four transfers?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay, the fifth transfer on this page is coming from the seasonal golf line, which has a balance of $7,800, and the amount requested is $518.57 to go to the fuel/utilities line to cover the deficit. Do I hear a motion to approve that transfer?
Motion to approve? Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay. The next transfer is also regarding the Packagug Golf Course, and this is coming from the seasonal golf line, which has a balance of $7,281.43 going to the fertilizer and material line. The amount requested, $2,078.81, and reason for transfer is to cover deficit. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The next transfer is also regarding the Packagug Golf Course. The transfer is coming from the Labor Parks line. The present balance on this, in this account is $43,022.87. The amount requested is $6,962.27, going to the account Packagug Golf Expenses. And the reason for the transfer is to meet Packagug Golf expenses above and beyond what was budgeted. And this is what you just
Yes,
referenced,
yes.
right? Okay, thank you, Mr. Kesnovich. Any questions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, oh, yes, sir, question?
motion to
Oh, all in favor? Aye.
That's what you do in Zoom. I'm so used to I approve that.
Opposed? No, okay. Good, that's it, that's all set. Thank you, Joanna, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, Joanna.
Okay, the next transfer is from the Town Accountant Department, coming from the unemployment compensation line, which has a present balance of $170,835.93. The amount requested is $17,296.91, going to the clerical line, and this is to provide for accrued vacation and sick pay resulting from unanticipated retirement.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I'm just curious, your office did.
Yeah, so, sorry to report, I kind of bittersweet, sweet for Kathy. I'm losing my assistant, so she's been here, Kathy's been great. We're losing about 35 years of experience. It's a big hit. So she notified me, I want to say sometime in March, of her intent to retire in July. Her last day is July 23rd. I'm recognizing this liability now because most of the time that she is accrued will be attributable to now. And so we put things into motion early on. We are training a very capable individual that's an employee in another office. That transfer will be made upon her departure. So I publicly want to wish Kathy Well. She's been an asset through the years. It's going to be, when you lose 35 years of experience, primarily in payroll too, that's a big hit, you know?
So she was the payroll person that is retiring.
She was my assistant, but she was the primary payroll person, yes. Was very good at what she did, so. So Patrick, I may be calling you pretty soon.
I was going to say, she's not leaving.
Crying on your shoulder, huh?
Not leaving to go work with
I'm
Patrick.
busy. I have the Auburn Finance Committee. My plate's full.
So,
Okay, thank you. Any questions? No. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? No. Okay, the next transfer is coming from the reserve account. Let's see, it's going to the COVID-19 disallowed cost. Amount requested is $30,000, and the present balance in this account is zero. And the reason for the transfer is to cover COVID-19 FEMA CARES expenditures that may be deemed ineligible for reimbursement. All right, Mr. Kazanovich, you can tell us about this.
So-
Yeah.
I debated long and hard over this. I actually talked to Tom, our new town accountant, to see if he thought this was a good idea. So let me give you a brief update as to where we are with CARES, FEMA, COVID-19. The town has been very fortunate. We received in total, and I can give you the breakdown, between fiscal 21, part of fiscal 20, fiscal 21, and expected FY 22, almost $8.3 million of federal money. And the bulk of that, it was recently announced through the Federal Recovery Act. Auburn is going to get a little over $5 million, and we just received our first installment of $877,000 the other day. It's broken out into two parts. There's a direct allocation, about $1.750 million that comes from the state, and then there's a county allocation, formula-driven, that gives us about $3.256 million. Combined, a little over $5 million. And we have a meeting on this tomorrow to discuss its uses because it's restricted. There is a revenue loss component, there's a capital component, but it's very limited. And quite honestly, we're still waiting for some guidance from DOR as to what its uses will allow us to do. When we look outside of the $5 million, we received or we were allocated almost $1.5 million of CARES money. And that was the first federal distribution that was driven on a population basis, $88 per resident, which was 16,814, which give us 1.4 million. Out of that, we've expended a little over $1 million, $1,000,001. And simply put, this is just an accounting nightmare. It's a lot of work. I'm glad we have Tom. But there are two pieces to this. So there's the almost $1.5 million of CARES. And then there's a FEMA component with no identified cap. And the rules keep changing on the eligibility, the reimbursement rate, and that's what gives me some uncertainty. So originally, and the dates are changing too, so FEMA said, qualifying expenses, we're gonna give you 75%. They changed it to 100%. But they're kicking out certain things, and if they kick it out, then we're allowed to file under the CARES piece. But my history, my mind tells me there may be certain items that may be disallowed under FEMA and under CARES. For instance, we manned the kiosk. We had people pulling up to the kiosk when the building was closed. I was recently told FEMA may not allow the kiosk wages to be reimbursed. That means we'd have to file under CARES. It's the accountant in me. I'm just afraid if something gets kicked, I want a backstop. I want to be able to provide a mechanism to cover that expense without raising it on as a deficit on a subsequent year's recap sheet. So we have the money now. Why not put in reserve? I'm hoping we don't spend a penny of that 30, but if we need it, it's there. If not, it will close out to a future year's undesignated fund balance. It will increase our free cash.
Question?
You said FEMA just for clarification and federal, but you didn't say ARPA. Is some of this actually ARPA money or is
The
it?
ARPA is the 5
Well, I
million.
wanted to clarify because you didn't, you said FEMA. Okay.
Yeah.
So ARPA's the 5 million.
Yep.
Okay. And even though some of the guidelines say that it was used, like I would think if you would look at that kiosk out there, it was definitely to prevent the spread, to give people
Yeah.
access. I would think that on some of that stuff, sitting in this seat, that it's a no-brainer.
Right.
But we're not the federal government, and they're still making decisions as we try to spend it. They're taking it away from us.
Well, what I'm also leery about is when the state lifted the restrictions on May 29th, we basically slammed on the brakes on spending on this money. Although they allow you to spend it till the fall or December of 21. And because the deadline is further down the line, I'm skeptical about spending any money now, thinking, well, the state lifted the restrictions, why are you spending money on PPE, or why are you spending money on whatever, when you're not allowed to social distance anymore, you don't have to wear masks. So we are very careful about what we're spending it on now, because it's basically, in my eyes, it's dried up.
Yep.
Unless we had something in the pipeline that we were already committed to, that hadn't been delivered yet.
You say it's coming to an end, I think, are you stating that in a few months they're going to come back and what we didn't use, they're going to take back? Just to clarify again.
One more time, Patrick?
So in other words, are you stating that this is going to come to an end? At some point, they're going to pull the switch, there's no more spending, and what isn't accounted for is going to be returned?
Well, that's a possibility.
Right.
That's our expectation.
Right.
What hasn't been spent, you have to return.
Right.
We also have to remember this is subject to a full audit.
Right.
And it probably won't be done for a year or two down the road, and that could come up with some findings that may allow or may require a payback to the federal government or to the state. So
That audit will come from our town auditor.
I think there's going to be a separate audit
You do?
conducted by, yes,
Okay.
in addition to the independent. Now, whether it will be assigned to the independent auditor, I don't know. I really don't know at this point in time. I heard there's going to be
There'll be at least one audit with the independent audit, and then there's a possibility that it'll go beyond that.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just, again, the language of how the money's to be spent, but wouldn't there be a replenishment component and, in essence, a preparation component should, we have an uptick, utilizing those monies to be prepared as opposed to waiting for the next funding cycle or the next act to come from Congress?
And that's a great point, because the next shoe could fall in the fall that would open this up again for PPE or other things that are needed to get you through another hit. And that may result in an extension of these funds beyond 12/31 if that should happen. So we're very cognizant of that. We're not saying this is it. We're just saying, given where we are right now, given that things have opened up, given that we're not required to do things that were under the governor's orders, we can't justify spending the money now under those conditions.
And just lastly, this account is a newly created account?
Newly created account. I wanted to just track it separately and not commingle it with any other funds. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. The first is, you mentioned that this money could be used for revenue use, so for revenues that perhaps dried up. Could that be used for the revenues that we lost in the hotel and motel and meal taxes?
Well, despite the fact that we lost in meals, hotel, motel, We did have a net gain in free cash of roughly $2 million. So I don't know if they're going to look at it in the
I think they do
aggregate.
look at it cumulative. If you have a net gain, I think there's a chance that it'll be overall not independent.
Okay. So they say you didn't really lose money, because look, you have.
So
Yeah.
what they want is, and you have to do it by line item, I just don't know whether they're going to hold us to the aggregate or by line item. So when you look at hotel motel,
Yeah.
we estimated a value that came in short of that. And so typically, what they do is they look at your recap and they say, you know, how are you trending? Were you increasing that at a level of X every year, say an increase, an inflationary factor?
Right.
So they index that by the inflationary factor. They look at the actuals and say, okay, you had a revenue loss of X. But when you boil it all down,
Yeah.
we had a surplus in revenue. So I still don't know how they're going to treat that.
And it may come to the 11th hour when they tell you exactly what they're going to do. They're not going to show their cards that early.
So my other question was the schools. Now, this doesn't count any of the schools' money, correct? Do they have money?
No, so the school, it does include the school's money.
Oh, it does, okay.
So the schools received a total, they have 4 grants totaling, in the aggregate, $1,342,000. And that includes money that is earmarked for the current fiscal year, FY '22. But as part of the CARES money, the 1.479 million we received, a good chunk of that was spent on schools,
Right.
not just towns. We
Right.
expended a lot of money on behalf of the schools. We did for food service to feed the kids while, you know, that needed some relief. We bought biofilter units for the schools. We spent money on PPE. We spent money on tents so they could hold classrooms, or they could hold classes outside. A good chunk of that million that we spent went to the schools.
Okay. So that 1,342,000 was part of the 8.3 million that
Yes,
we got
yes.
in total? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Did you have any relief? I know at one point they had 75% and then 25%, and then they gapped it and went to 100.
Yes.
Did you find any relief there? Where you
We
had-
still, well, it's still being reviewed by FEMA. So, yes, I mean, you know, initially, we charged 75% to FEMA, 25% to CARES.
Right.
Although they changed the rules, we qualify for 100% on previously 75% allowable. So, yes,
Didn't pick up a gain there that you can then use for something else that you didn't anticipate?
not at this point,
Okay.
but we may.
May.
Yeah,
So there's a potential that you'll have some gain there?
yes.
Yes, sir.
At some point, do you think, and there's no urgency on this, I'm just curious now, as we talked about the expenditures that went on over the past years and towards these monies, could we get a spreadsheet of how they were allocated, or at least rough?
So I'm trying to think, I mean, I can give you a printout. We do have worksheets that Tom has prepared that we submit by category. Maybe we'll give you the category. I think they're like 10 different categories.
It's difficult to give the actual numbers because they're really not verified yet. There's no guarantee that, because we've placed that information in those columns, that that's actual. But probably knowing what the categories are would probably be useful.
I think as, you know, if folks were ever to ask us questions, and, you know, when you mentioned the tents, I hadn't even thought about the, you know, who was paying for the tents.
Yeah.
Are those rentals or purchases?
They're rentals.
They're rentals. You know, just little things like that come to mind, and I'm like, oh, I wonder where exactly, you know, there's some great uses of strategies and fundings that went on to keep us ahead of the curve and keep us functioning as a community.
And I'm going to give you a perfect example of a potential disallowed cost. So during COVID, when they went back to school, a lot of parents drove their kids to school and didn't bus them to school, and it created a traffic nightmare. So the school department hired details at a cost of $40,000 to deal with the traffic nightmare of parents
Swanson
taking
Road,
the kid.
Brotherton Lane, and
We charged 2 weeks of that 40 to the federal money, and beyond that, we said we don't believe it to be an eligible cost. So those first 2 weeks may get kicked, and we may have to absorb that through this transfer because it may not qualify under FEMA, it may not qualify under CARES.
That's interesting. It's a shifting landscape. It's a
Yeah.
shifting set of whole rules. Ridiculous.
And I think you're going to see a lot of pressure bubble up from the communities if things are disallowed, because they may not have the capability to absorb those costs.
Absolutely, yeah. Any other questions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, so let's see, transfers. Okay, just a few more. The next is from the Treasurer Collector Department. Coming from the line bill printing, which has a balance of $7,479.80. Amount requested is $943.19 to the clerical line to fund the Treasurer Collector's clerical salaries. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The next transfer is also coming from the bill printing line, which now has a balance of the previous balance less 900, going to the stipend line, $2.49.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The last transfer is for the Human Resources Department, coming from the medical exam line, which has a present balance of $4,103. Amount requested is $1,200. That's going to the clerical line. The reason for the transfer is to cover current deficit resulting from additional hours of coverage in manager's office due to COVID leave.
So, Madam Chair, briefly, we
Yes.
had an individual in the manager's office qualify under a Relief Act bill. It allows for the care of their children during COVID. And as a result, we were obligated to pay 100%, I think, for the first 10 days, and then there's a formula where you have to pay 2/3 of the pay for a remaining 10 weeks. So it created a hole in the office, and we shifted a former employee, who's a part-time employee, to pick some additional hours up to help cover the office during that period of time. So it was unanticipated, and
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that is it. Do I hear any questions? Anyone?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Just a curiosity, the report that you passed out at the beginning of the meeting and the percent used, you have some areas that are over 100%. Will those balance out by 6:30?
give me a for instance, Patrick.
The first one's on page 3, down under Finance Treasurer Collector. The second line clerical is at 101.2%.
We did transfers to meet that.
You did?
Yeah.
So anything that's over or not equal to 100 has been corrected?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, anything over or, anything just over 100.
Would need to be funded.
Right, yeah. Because some of the accounts we might use less than 100. Correct. But you encumbered that account, this runoff shows all salaries encumbered, correct?
Well, even with
remaining balance of the year.
Even with encumbered, they're over. So that's why I.
That's why
All right.
whatever ones were over were dealt.
We're dealt with tonight.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
That's,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, we approved, didn't we, at our last meeting? We okayed you to do transfers up to $250, I think it was?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And I got to tell you, it's been minimal so far. It may become more active as we get closer to the end of
Yep.
the last payroll. And, I mean, we're talking cents or a few dollars here or there, or the last bill schedule. So I'm suspecting we're going to need one more meeting sometime latter part of July to deal with anything that we may encounter. I think we're going to be all set with the payroll. There may be one situation that's unknown. But it's the payable piece that may generate a few requests.
Okay. And speaking of the unemployment line, all those requests for unemployment really dried up, right?
It dried up. There was a lot of fraud.
Yep.
I don't know if you saw that. Yeah. We got credits for that.
Good.
I mean, in the onset of COVID, for the month of June in 2020, we had a bill for $22,000.
Yep.
And my heart went into AFib. I'm like, you kidding? So that's why we did
Yeah.
that amendment for the
Yeah.
unemployment, thinking we're going to be dealing with this for a while. A lot of that was fraud.
So we get credits for that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's certainly a line that we can transfer money from because we're just not, okay. I was just trying to look it up, but I don't see it. All
And
right.
we brought that back to a level of $50,000 for FY '22.
Okay, good. Okay, questions? No? No? Do I hear a
Happy
motion?
summer, everyone.
Happy summer. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn? Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No.